ダメだ。恋愛なんてまだ早い。
Anyone want to tell this dude that he's not the girls' father in this continuity? Then again, I'll take the fake father over the deadbeat versions any day of the week. We open this episode at a hospital with a little boy blowing bubbles and talking to his mother. And just like that, now I have to get the tissues ready. I mean, seriously, a line like that pretty much guarantees something sad is gonna happen in this episode. And the fact that this is a Toei production involving bubble blowing, you know things are gonna go south real fast. Granted, it's not gonna happen to this kid specifically, but rather those words would end up resonating with another kid, so it still kind of counts. Anyway, Takaki here had the worst kind of condition, the unspecified kind that somehow left him wheelchair bound. It could be worse, at least you're not stuck on a tropical island with a psychotic killer bear, and you still have both of your eyes. But yeah, after some good hinting towards his backstory, that troublesome little black light found its next victim. Returning to the present day, the girls, as usual, made quick work of Mojo. It then started raining, which seemed to trigger a memory for Miyako, which was confirmed through this little rotation that I think was supposed to be a full uncut shot, but I guess with this show's budget, that was kind of out of their wheelhouse. Still a nicely directed scene though. But yeah, obviously this is going to be a Miyako episode, and thus we followed her into the next day with her getting a love letter from a boy, just as Momoko arrived to describe her experiences with a boy she liked, which included assault, theft, and being a general nuisance. Yeah, how dare he not file a restraining order against you? Of course, she saw Miyako's love letter, and while this girl is kind of dense when it comes to most human interactions, she could tell when someone was or wasn't in love. In this case, she was able to guess that Miyako had her eyes on someone else, which of course turned out to be Takaki. And while she didn't want to name drop him just yet, Miyako did give a description of him. Well, clearly, someone didn't see Nagatoro-san from last season. Seriously, a surprisingly good show after you get past the first episode. Later, the girls and Ken managed to learn more about her crush, which apparently started 6 years prior, and oh jeez. You know what this scene really needs? A little dragon. I apologize if you end up developing diabetes from that. I'm guessing Miyako is also a fan of Chisai Bani Bani no Kawaii Boken Monogatari in this continuity. Anyway, her fun with her friends was unfortunately interrupted by some older boys, prompting a young Takaki to intervene. Offhandedly, one of them mentioned him missing school, and sure enough, it was because of his hospitalization. Thus, even these brats didn't want to hit a sick kid. Thank God this episode wasn't written by Toshiaki Inoue, aka the Frank Miller of Japan. Otherwise, these little bullies might have been over-the-top little psychopaths. Still, Takaki's kindness, in spite of his obvious ailments, won Miyako over, along with his great bubble-blowing skills, which included blowing a large bubble with several smaller ones inside, which, yeah, I'm not even sure if that's physically possible, but I think the point is, much like in Digimon, was to show that you do need a gentle touch to pull this sort of stuff off. Nice little bit of storytelling there. Speaking of which, I love this little background detail of Utonium freaking out throughout this little romantic exposition from his non-daughter in this continuity. Seriously, dude, your actual kid is trying to calm you down. Anyway, the two promised that they would meet again someday, which I'm sure won't lead into anything tragic. Yeah, sure enough, in another really well-directed scene, we saw Takaki not get a great bill of health against a very ominous sunset. Seriously, this show might not have some of the best animation overall, but the direction and color usage in this outing was really good. In fact, here's another nice effect, as the boy was fully engulfed by the everlasting darkness. I really need to start researching newer memes, don't I? But yeah, it was pretty obvious that Takaki was going to be the monster of the week. I just wonder who he's going to be. Maybe he'll become a member of the Gangrene Gang, or maybe even the Sandman since he is in bed all the time, or a really badass looking werewolf. That works too. Yes, much like Michelle, Takaki was an original villain for this show, and while that dude had a very abstract design, this one just looks awesome. I get the feeling like this might have been based off of Disney's Beast to go with the whole Beauty and the Beast theme between him and Miyako, but they also gave him more mechanical hind legs, I'm guessing to represent his inability to walk in his human form. So in general, it's a great design that elicits both badassery and yet also sympathy. He wouldn't feel out of place in something like Digimon, though let's not make too many comparisons lest we want to raise some unnecessary death flags. Also, this monster Takaki, as far as I can tell, never got a proper name, so I'll give him one since this is a significantly different character. And now he's the Bubble Beast. Anyway, the girls engaged the BB in one of the better animated fights of the series. Again, for a show that hasn't really had the best animation throughout, this is some relatively fantastic stuff. Sadly, it is even a little better than some recent Precure episodes. Come on, Toei, I know you want to take me down for real, so bring it. Still, out of my respect for the actual creators, I gotta give credit to Tetsuji Nakamura, the director and storyboarder of this episode. I think he's a really underutilized talent. Sure, he's not exactly an S-tier director or anything, but he can usually make the most out of productions with relatively scarce resources like this show and Digimon Tamers. In general, he just seems to really know how to balance the action and more dramatic set pieces like he did with the second film of that series. I also do want to talk about the writer of this episode, but I'll save that until the end because that one really surprised me. During the fight, some debris almost fell on a slightly inattentive little brat. Like, seriously kid, you can't see that thing coming towards you? Actually, he does kind of look like that one kid from Superman 2. You know, the one who is dancing around on the railings at Niagara Falls. However, rather than Soups or even Spike coming in to save him, the Bubble Beast intervened. Of course, Miyako was the only one to realize that he had tried to save the kid, and she began to put two and two together when he started playing with some soap bubbles. Gotta make that distinction with this character. And he even managed to pull off a familiar, questionable bit of physics. However, I guess her teammates had never heard the old phrase, "let sleeping dogs lie," and tried to slay the beast. Thus, Miyako tried to protect him, realizing who he was, and believing that she could talk him down. And yeah, this did lead into your standard cheesy scene of the protagonist trying to get through to an antagonist friend, but come on, for a show like this, I can give it a pass. Heck, there was even a really nice subtle moment here with Kaoru holding back Momoko, showing that while she couldn't totally understand the situation, she was able to recognize what her friend was doing. In the end, the Bubble Beast still managed to escape, but Miyako was convinced that Takaki was still in there, and her friends backed her up, saying that they would eventually save him. With that, the episode ended with our blue Powerpuff looking towards the day when she'd be able to rescue her first love, which would be a ways away, in fact, near the end of the series. But hey, at least we got a really good emotional insert song here to send us off. You know, as much as I do genuinely like this show, this is one thing I didn't really expect to say about the show. This episode was just as good as some of the better Precure episodes from around this time. In fact, in some ways, it was even better than some Splash Star episodes, having some great direction and better than average animation. On top of that, it just had some good writing that really got across the touching little relationship developing between Miyako and Takaki. So, color me surprised when I learned that the writer of this was Saki Hasumi. And if that name doesn't sound familiar, here's a little hint to one of her more well-known works. Yeah. I mean, okay, I don't think To Lover is a bad series per se. Yeah, I still hate that they haven't got to a conclusive ending after more than one attempt, but I do find it to be an enjoyably over-the-top harem anime, so I was surprised that we managed to get a rather wholesome and cute little romance out of her. Yeah, it is a bit of a basic Beauty and the Beast scenario that really does play up Takaki's elements, but they did make the characters likable enough that we can look past how cliche this was. This in turn led to a good superheroine story for Miyako as she tried to resolve the conflict as peacefully as possible after learning the monster's identity. Ironically, Takagi only became a beast because he wanted to attain freedom like the bubbles in the air, be it of the soapy or superheroine variety. And while both characters managed to attain great powers, only one of them was able to control them and likely wished she could give that control to the other. Again, for a show that doesn't need to be taken all that seriously, this does almost feel like a story that wouldn't be out of place in a good Precure series, helped by the fact that this was one of the best looking episodes so far. Yeah, they still don't have the greatest fights or anything, but the direction throughout this episode was absolutely on point, with some great usage of colors that really conveyed the emotions of the two main characters, with Miyako yearning to reunite with her first love, and Takaki struggling with his ailing body. Combine that with some excellent music, and you get an episode that's easily a step above any others before it. And while this conflict, unfortunately, wouldn't be revisited until much later into the series, it was still a wonderful showing for our not-so-bubbly superheroine. As I'm recording this, my channel is still frozen, ironically, because of these very reviews. Thus, as you might have noticed, I've altered the format ever so slightly to make it less susceptible to strikes. I don't know if it's gonna help anything, but I'm certainly not gonna let a setback like a broken copyright system stop me from making the videos I want to make. Which of course will include the third part of my Go Princess review that hopefully I can get done by the time my channel's back. Regardless, look forward to it. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and ooh, these are some pretty looking bubbles. Who's blowing them? Oh, it's you, Dumbo. Wait. Yeah, I'm out.